So far in our series looking into some of the world's most prolific killers, we focused exclusively on men.
From today, though, our focus shifts onto the two remaining types of killers, two that are generally female. This morning, criminologist David Wilson examines the first of those, commonly known as comfort killers.
So we welcome Professor David Wilson. Let's start first of all by recapping on the 7 faces of a killer.
Sure. We started by looking at 5 of the male types: the hedonistic, the power control, the spree killer, the mission serial killer, and the visionary serial killer. And today what we're going to concentrate on is the first of the 2 types of female serial killers, the comfort, and then next week the disciple serial killer.
So what is a comfort killer?
Well, a comfort serial killer is a type associated primarily with women, and you might popularly think they're killing for material gain. In other words, they benefit financially from the fact that they're killing. Often they will kill within their family or within their network of friends. Often also they will use, there's no female equivalent of Jack the Ripper, so these are women who are going to kill by using poison primarily. And the thing that I find particularly fascinating about the comfort serial killers is that they're very good at performing femininity. These are people who will convince you that they're very good mothers, they could be a very good lover, they could be that kindly grandmotherly figure that lives next door. So a very chilling type of killer.
So who are some examples?
Well, I usually, when I come in, give you 4 examples. Remember, fewer women commit murder and fewer women therefore commit serial murder, so I've only given you 3 examples today. I've given Mary Ann Cotton is our first example, then in the middle Dorothea Puente, and then at the far closest to Holly is Eileen Wuornos, and Puente and Wuornos are both American serial killers.
Well, let's start with Mary Ann Cotton.
Yeah, who is she?
Yeah, Mary Ann Cotton is almost my specialist subject, to be perfectly honest. Subject of my last book, Britain's first female serial killer, and in the 2 decades before Jack the Ripper was terrorising the streets of Whitechapel, Mary Ann Cotton, frankly, had become a killing machine. So listen to this. She is suspected of having killed from 1865 until she was eventually caught in 1873. 8 children, 7 stepchildren, 3 husbands, a lover, her mother, and an inconvenient friend. This woman was just a machine at killing. She would, and eventually was caught and executed, but only for 1 murder in 1873.
Only for 1 murder?
Well, because the first murder, you see, that was a capital case. And so if she had been found not guilty for that murder, she would have then faced other charges.
I see.
But because it was a capital case, she was executed for having killed her stepson.
Why was the way in which she sort of killed her victims important?
That's a very good question, because it's one of the reasons why Mary Ann Cotton was so successful, because the Victorian period is often known as the arsenic century because arsenic was everywhere, and Mary Ann Cotton was a poisoner. She used arsenic. Now, the key thing about arsenic is it will dissolve in very hot liquids, so you can disguise the arsenic in tea, in soup, in broths. And, of course, if you're feeding a sickly child some broth, no one is going to suspect that you're actually killing that child. And the other reason why I think she chose arsenic was because arsenic poisoning mimics the symptoms of gastroenteritis. So an unsuspecting doctor would think that this very sickly person was suffering from diarrhea, vomiting, dehydration. So he's not going to suspect that, in fact, she's killing, but that indeed was what she was doing.
So why is she a comfort killer?
Well, she's a comfort killer because, remember, this is the beginning of life assurance. And so every husband, even some of her children that she was killing, was generating an income for her. Her first husband, who died, gave her a life assurance policy of £35. Now, that doesn't seem very much, but it was the equivalent of 6 months' wages. And even the children that she was killing, because she had paid into what was known as burial clubs, generated an income for her.
Oh, my goodness me. How she got away with it for so long?
Well, she was travelling around, that's the first thing, and this is the northeast of England that we're talking about. And you really, in the mid-Victorian period, only had to travel 10, 15, 20 miles before, in fact, you were an anonymous face. You could literally start again. And Mary Ann Cotton would literally wipe out one family, then start another so as to wipe that family out and benefit financially hence she's a comfort
How did they
killer.
catch her in the end?
In the end, one of the people, an overseer of poor relief called Thomas Riley in the village of West Auckland, just became so suspicious that the stepson, the 7-year-old stepson, who had been perfectly healthy on the Monday, was dead by the Wednesday. And he starts alarm bells ringing in West Auckland, and those alarm bells are listened to in other towns and villages in the northeast of England where Mary Ann Cotton had been active.
God, well done for him. Who is Dorothea Puente?
I chose Dorothea Puente because here, people sometimes say to me, you're obviously going to be able to recognise a serial killer. Look at Dorothea Puente. She's everybody's favourite granny. She's everybody's favourite great aunt. Whereas, in fact, she was active in Sacramento, the capital of California. In 1988, she owned a boarding house. Her tenants would be elderly people, and she would do them a service. She'd cash their social security checks for them because they were unable to do so themselves. Eventually, though, people started to get suspicious. Where were these elderly boarders? They dug up her backyard and found 7 bodies. She was eventually charged with 9 murders, but convicted of only 3. And Dorothea Puente only died at the age of 82 in prison in 2011. But just look at that figure. You would never suspect this woman of being a serial killer.
So what makes her a comfort killer, then?
Chillingly, Holly, at the height of her killing spree, she was generating an income of $5,000 a month by cashing these social security checks, and therefore classically fits this profile that I've been developing for you of the comfort serial killer. She benefits materially from the killings that she engages with.
Wow. So if you met with her, would she have appeared like everybody's favourite elderly aunt?
Oh, absolutely. These women, Mary Ann Cotton and Dorothea Puente in particular, perform femininity. They want to seduce you. They want to attract you, because if they repel you, they can use you. And they need you close so as to be able to work out how best to be able to use you. Which is why I often say, Holly, that psychopaths are not scary, they're very seducing.
Which is in itself scary and terrifying.
Absolutely.
What about Eileen here,
yes.
the last one?
Well, the final serial killer I've put up here is Eileen Wuornos. Now, some people might argue that she's not really a comfort killer, but I've chosen to put her up. She was a sex worker who was murdering men in Florida in 1989-1990, is eventually convicted of 6 of those murders and was executed in 2002 by lethal injection. People might know of Eileen Wuornos because the movie Monster, she was played by Charlize Theron, who won the Academy Award for playing her. But some people might say she's not a comfort killer, but she was deliberately targeting clients who had better standards of cars. She was pawning some of their possessions after they had been killed. And, of course, she was benefiting financially from the fact that she was able to gain access to these men, take their money, then pawn their possessions.
So is there a reason why, if you look down this list, though, why these women appear to depend on men so much?
Yes, I think it's simply for instrumental reasons. They need more victims to continue to generate their income. And so we could look for all kinds of psychological reasons, but frankly, they just need access to as many victims as possible, because for them, each victim equals a cash benefit.
In our last sort of 30 seconds or so, why is it that more men kill than women?
Well, there are a whole range of reasons for explaining that. How men are socialised differently, how they're brought up differently as boys from girls. So the sense in which men also have greater opportunities to mix outside of the home, where there's less social control over their behaviour. Traditionally, girls will be brought up within the home. Boys are encouraged to get out of the home more. And so that kind of socialisation process might be that thing that encourages more men to kill as opposed to women to kill. And do also remember, those socialisation processes begin to affect how you think and see the world.
Gosh, that's
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Fascinating.